first of all, how should people pronounce your first name?
Vivek, like cake.
Not Vivek.
It's okay, I appreciate best efforts, but Vivek, like cake, is how you say it.
Okay, and most people who follow me and who follow you say that you seem to be a good guy and you seem to have good policy ideas, but you are struggling in the poll. What else do you think you should do to appeal to more Americans?
Yeah, I don't think we're struggling at all. Actually, most of this country still doesn't know who I am. So considering that, I think we're actually off to a great start. Polling ahead of many U.S. senators, past governors. I'm polling ahead of where Trump was in 2015. Of June of 2015, I'm ahead of where he was. So we're actually very happy with where we are. I think the debate stage is going to be critical. That's going to turn this race upside down. Then the Iowa caucus will place in the top 3. New Hampshire will place in the top 2. And I think we win this election.
Do you think you need to do anything else to appeal to more people right now?
You know, here's my approach to appealing to people. Speak the truth. I speak my true beliefs. And here's my bet, and what I tell people is, you may agree with only 70 or 80% of what I say, but you will know 100% of the time that I'm actually saying what I mean. And so I'm not a finger in the wind candidate that tries to ask what the audience wants and then give that to them. I view things a little differently. I share my true convictions. And if they want to actually follow a person who has convictions, that's up to the voters, it's not up to me. So my bet is that's the winning political strategy. But if it's not, that's still the only way I know how to do it.
So you say that you want to ban American companies from doing business with China?
Unless China meets our demands. Exactly.
And until recently, you were the CEO of a key company, a key firm, a pharmaceutical firm. Have you ever done any business with China?
I actually have, and this is where I learned. I've been an exchange student in China for 2 years. My first business that I founded did business in China. And that's where my eyes open up that the reality is, especially for bigger businesses, even bigger than the one I founded, what happens is that if you don't meet the CCP's demands, then you can't do business in China. So when I started my more recent company, Strive, to compete against BlackRock, I differentiated from BlackRock by saying that Strive would never do business as an asset manager in China. And I think that here's how we get the CCP to reform. We hold a hard line. We say you will not buy land in this country. You will not donate to universities in this country. And to U.S. businesses, you will not do business in China unless and until the CCP reforms its behaviors or falls. No IP theft, no data theft, no turning companies into lobbying pawns here in the United States. We see that regularly. That's not capitalism. That is mercantilism. And so I will hold a hard line. And you want to mark my words on this. The reason we just brush aside their silly spy balloon, as Biden called it, well, now what do we have? We have a silly spy base in Cuba. The reason we're not doing anything about it is we're dependent on our enemy for our modern way of life. That was never true about the USSR. It is true about communist China today. So I think I understand how to declare independence from China without harming American economic interests. And I'll actually deliver it.
So you also said you supported President Biden's decision to allow transgender individuals to serve in the military.
I did not actually, but I can tell you what I did say. Yeah.
And what did you say?
I say that I believe that transgenderism is a mental health condition, and it should be treated as such. And so any place where we have a framework for dealing with mental health disorders, we should deal with it in the same way that we deal with mental health disorders in those contexts. So that means, you know what we say in the military? You can't serve in a combat role if you have a mental health condition. This is a mental health condition that should stop you from serving. So I believe in consistency. I believe for most of our national history, it has been characterized as a mental health condition all the way to the DSM-5. And I believe in principle, I will stand on that same principle.
So on that, currently the U.S. military provide gender transition hormone and surgery for troops. Will you continue that policy to provide that one?
Absolutely not. End it on day one. We should not be paying for equivalents of cosmetic surgeries at the public fisc. If a woman wants to get a breast augmentation, she doesn't get the VA to pay for that. I don't think that a man who poses or pretends to be a woman should get the same thing either.
Also, a report says that you paid to have some elements of your biography removed from Wikipedia page, including the 2011 Paul and Daisy Soros Fellowship.
I'll tell you the number of, so does my team actually monitor for information on pages about me and make sure things that are false are removed? My name was written in some foreign language, that I was Indian born, all kinds of falsehoods that are perpetuated. Absolutely. But what I will say is that I take it as a good sign right now where we are in the race. It's probably our best sign that we're doing well, that these thin stories about tit for tat, this or that, great. That suggests to me we're on the right track. We're going to stay on that track. unafraid. And also, if you want to be the U.S. president, you can't handle the heat, you stay out of the kitchen. I'll handle the heat.
To my last question.
Yeah.
During the COVID pandemic crisis in July 2020, you tweeted that you were puzzled by conservatives opposed to wearing masks when Bernie Sanders called for masks for all Americans. Do you believe that was a mistake?
I don't believe, and I think that that's actually a small portion of what I was talking about with the protests versus the vaccine mandates, where I thought we should have been most focused. So that was the context. But the reality is, masks, we now know, do not work to prevent the spread of COVID. I think mask mandates were a bad idea. We know that vaccine mandates were a bad idea. But we have to learn from the past to actually make for a better future. And I think that the problem that I see right now is even today, you see it even in recent months, censorship of that information on places like YouTube or on social media networks. Frankly, my account was locked on LinkedIn, owned by Microsoft, because I was talking about true hard-based facts based on the climate cult as well. So I believe that we should learn from our mistakes in the past. I will tell you that I was one of the earliest opponents of the vaccine mandates. I was actually on Tucker's show in December of 2020, predicting that this would be like the equivalent of Tuskegee in terms of what we learned later on when they wanted to racially distribute the vaccines. And so I stand by my positions over time and saying that we need to speak without fear on this issue.
So in your 2022 book, Nations of Victims, you strongly criticize President Trump for claiming to be the victim of a stolen election. You wrote, being a sole loser is a danger to democracy.
Here's what I say is,
do you regret those comments?
To the contrary, I think the real election interference we need to focus on is from big tech. That Hunter Biden laptop story had not been suppressed, I believe we would have had a different result in the last presidential election. But I think that we have to be rigorous about where we're actually focused. And this is what I said in the room too. You know what, I tell the left this all the time. Hardship is not a choice, victimhood is a choice. I believe we go further when we don't do it based on victimhood and grievance. I believe it when we do it based on first principles and moral authority. So there's a lot, it's funny to get this question from you. A lot of people across the landscape are now saying, oh, I'm being too nice to Trump. I'm defending Trump. I went to Miami to defend him, that I spoke out against Alvin Bragg. When I was the first person to speak out there, I said I would pardon President Trump. So they say you're being too nice to him. You'll say, oh, are you criticizing some of his policies? My view is, it's not about Trump, it's not about me, it's about the American people. That's who I'm standing up for, and standing up for that truth without playing political calculus. That's what I'm going to continue doing this race. Thank you.
If Trump wins the nomination, will you be ready to serve in his administration?
I expect to win the nomination, and I will take President Trump's help at every step as an advisor, informally or otherwise, to pick up where he left off on actually shutting down that administrative state. We have a very good relationship of mutual respect, and I expect to rely on him for his learnings as I lead this country. I will depend on him, and I will also pardon him if he's convicted, which I hope he is not, and I expect he should not be. But if he is, I will stand to my commitment to deliver a pardon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. I appreciate it.